Welcome to my podcast, which is all about changing your business and money reality. This is your master money coach, Dr. Gaurav Deka, and you are money. Hello, my friends. How have you been? Welcome to the 26th episode of my podcast, You Are Money. Today's episode is called When We Rob Clients of Their Agency. I know it feels like a very intense title, but I'm going to, first of all, give a shout out to two of my brilliant student coaches inside ATEPS. And you have to know their stories. So inside ATEPS, Suniti Barua, who happens to be a psychotherapist and she works with childhood trauma, she writes, #celebration. And she writes, guys, people who have never followed me on Instagram, people who have no idea of my work have started signing up. I received 2 clients from my Diwali healing offer who didn't ask a single question or what all is there in the session, just details for payment, and I received within 5 minutes. I never thought body-based business could feel this way. And isn't that super duper brilliant? She made an offer and she relied on her body. I keep talking about nervous system and body in this podcast. She relied on her body to make that offer, and then voila, it all worked out, isn't it? And then I want to also give a shout out and congratulate another student of mine, Alankrita. And she writes, for the first time, I came up with an offer of a month-long inner child healing session for the month of November, and all slots got sold out. And I got sold out yesterday, whereas I put up the offer in the beginning of this month. And by this, we realize that there is certainly some magic inside ATEPs happening. And that is true. There is magic inside ATEPs that keeps on happening. And it happens not because I give them something magical, not because I offer them ingredients by which they can pull up some magical potion. Not because of that. It's because I teach them concepts. I teach them practices. I teach them ways by which they can make magic happen in their practice, in their business, and can make the money that they want to make the money that they desire, right? And today I want to talk about something related to that, something which is intense and important at the same time. And this episode is around the concept of selling, okay? For so many of my coaches inside ATEPS, not only Suniti, not only Alankrita, for many of my coaches, initially selling was such a hard pill to swallow. And I know it in my heart. I've seen their work for so many years that they are excellent coaches with excellent skills. All of them, every single person inside ATEPS. And even they know that they bring such amazing results to their clients, to the lives of their clients. And that is because so many people tell me that there is a shower of testimonials since they have started practicing the deliberate thought building process before every session and every consult call that allows them to be in truly, believe that their clients can change and transform. So the deliberate thought building process actually allows them to think ahead of time in believing the healed future version of the client. That's what DTB does for them, right? It gives you that power to decide where your client is going to be and where you are going to be. Now, this is super important. I tell all my students, simply because you have to be willing to believe in what your client can achieve. You really have to be willing to believe what your client can achieve. When you look at a prospective client or a new client, and then, there are thoughts like, oh, I don't like this woman because she isn't my ideal client. She doesn't look like my ideal client. I don't think this woman can lose 30 kgs in 6 months. Or I don't think someone so arrogant and hot-headed like them can ever find a boyfriend. I wonder if they will understand my work. It's not for people who aren't oriented towards spirituality. And something like, they are so lazy, I don't know if they will be willing to commit their time. What if they don't value my time and energy? So when you have these negative thoughts, right, about your client, you impact the way you feel about them. In your inner landscape, in your emotional landscape, you have somehow already decided how you are going to feel about them, how you're going to treat them, how they will never meet up to your standards, how they will continue to displease you or even disappoint you. I always advise my students to check their thoughts about their clients. Because if they continue to have these thoughts, then they don't trust their clients. They cannot be in 100% service. You cannot serve a client that you don't believe will reach where they want to reach. Whether it's losing a certain amount of weight or healing from, let's say, a codependent relationship, or overcoming their grief, or making a transformation in their business, you just can't if you don't believe that they can't achieve that, if you have judgments about them. So when I was learning regression therapy, our trainer taught us that there is a square of trust between the client and the therapist, or the coach in this case. The client's, the first line of the square is the client's trust on the therapist. The second line is the therapist's trust on the client. The third line is the client's trust on themselves. And the fourth line of the square is the therapist's trust on themselves, right? Let that sink in for a moment. The client's trust on the therapist's trust on the client's trust on themselves, the therapist's trust on themselves, okay? And over years and years of experience of working with hundreds of clients, I have realized that the second line of the square, which is the therapist trust on the client, the second line of the square is the most important one. And I see it as the ability to see your client every single session, starting with their discovery session or the consultation call, in their future transformed state. You have to see them in their future transformed state. And while it is agreeable till here with many coaches, many people tell me that, oh, yes, Gaurav, you're right. We have to see our clients in their healed state. We have to meet our client in their transformed state. We already have to believe in the future that our client requires, client wants, right? And a lot of coaches agree with that. I mean, I can literally visualize my coaches, so many of you listeners nodding your head, isn't it? Or even like tapping your table in agreement. I'm going to say something that in the beginning may not feel true, or may not feel a part of the second line of the square, which is, again, the therapist or the coach's trust on the client. And that is when you pre-decide that your client will not be able to pay your coaching fee. When you get annoyed when they ask you about the pricing of your offer. When you give them a discount thinking that they wouldn't take your full offer. When you make them responsible for getting paid less. When you hold resentment against them the moment they come up with an objection like, it's Diwali and we have spent a lot of money, or we are in the middle of shifting, so it's difficult to pay that much amount of money. When you have these pre-decided decisions or conclusions or feelings around the fact that because of your client's assumed inability to pay for your coaching, you won't make money. I'm going to repeat this again. When you have these pre-decided decisions or conclusions around the fact that because of your client's assumed inability to pay for your coaching, you won't make money, you don't realize that you have somehow robbed them of their agency. You have robbed them of the transformation that was possible with you. You have also robbed them of the future version they had come to you for. And you may be wondering, how? How is that even possible? And let me tell you, it's very simple actually. Because every time you go into thoughts like these, listen carefully. They can't pay me. Why do these people ask for discounts? It's because of these kind of clients that I can't make money. Or why do they always have objections? I don't think they can afford me. And then in a discovery call or the first phone call, you not only buy into these disempowering thoughts of yours, but you also do not challenge or ask your client, why do they think it's expensive? You don't ask, is it true that they really don't have the money to invest? Is therapy, coaching, or healing on their priority list? You don't ask, what if they had to choose between spending a lavish Diwali or buying your coaching? What if they had to take a loan to avail your coaching? Because if they're willing to take a loan to buy a house or a couch or a car, then what would exactly stop them from taking a loan to buy your coaching? And what would stop them is their own thoughts. Because in those thoughts, therapy, coaching, or healing is not as important as buying a house, a couch, or a car, which means that somehow their desire for their transformation is not in alignment with what they are willing to invest. This is the portion, this is the gap that I teach and train my students to observe, to notice, because this is where you can actually be present with your client. And you can actually make the square of trust between you and your client the strongest. And how do we do that? We do that by not freezing in that moment. We do that by not letting anger or disappointment, break our engagement with our client. We do that by not simply buying into their thoughts or our own thoughts about them and their paying capacity. Because when we do that, we think we are saving our client from spending their money. We think that we are agreeing to what they want, and by that we are somehow doing justice to their wish. We think, by letting go of clients who don't want to work with us, who want to work with us but are not sure about the amount of investment it takes, we think that we are creating space. We think we are making a choice for them. But the truth is, when done prematurely, we are robbing our client of their agency to transform, to change, to heal, to walk out of an abusive relationship, to lose those extra 30 kgs, to let go of that toxic, blood-sucking job, to become a loving parent, to adopt a healthy life. And most of all, their agency to decide whether they really want the coaching or healing, whether they really are invested in their transformation, whether they are willing to make this a priority. And this can happen when you allow your client to lean into the safety that you provide them during the call and make them aware of what is possible by working with you. What results can they experience when they pay you? What transformation awaits them if you and they keep meeting every week for coaching or healing? Right? So inside ATEPS, I teach my students to witness how the nervous system of the client is co-regulating with the nervous system of the coach. So when the coach goes into feelings of freeze, shutting down, or anger and resentment, the client can sense it. The client actually feels it in their body. And one of the things I bring from my experience of being a trained somatic psychotherapist is when conversations get difficult and there are triggering moments, like someone saying, oh, that's too expensive. But why is your coaching so expensive? I can't afford it. It's too much for me. So in these kind of conversations, we may exit the body. We often zoop out of the body and leave it alone. Our nervous system goes into a frenzy and often collapses internally. You can imagine it like a gentle tug of war version, not the one where one is pulling the other, but just imagine two people holding a rope tight at both ends. And suddenly one lets go of one of the end out of fear or anxiety. And then the other just falls on the ground immediately. They lose trust and confidence in the other. In fact, they are not able to trust you the next time. And this is exactly what happens when you're speaking to your prospective client and you make their objection to your offer about you, something personal about you. And the truth is, it is about them. Instead of going into some kind of freeze or being scared or angry and frustrated, first thing is learn to stay inside your body. We do this all the time inside ATEPs. It's a deliberate practice that we do almost in every single coaching call. And we teach people to stay inside their bodies. It's very tempting because of our traumatic experiences in the past to either go into a freeze response, sometimes into a fight response, and often into a fawn. Well, fawn may show up in trying to please the client by giving them discount or getting sold on their excuses when they tell you that they can't arrange the budget or they have to speak to their husband or the fact that they find it too expensive. So when we learn to create space in our bodies and our nervous systems, we slowly stop doing all of that. And we continue to show our clients why they are here. Because the truth is, they are here for transformation. They are here to heal. They are here to change the way they think and feel, which eventually changes their whole world. And while they want it, they also go back and forth in their minds if they can pay what you charge. This is a part of you showing them the results they can experience with you by staying in your body and by continuing to coach them in that moment. You can give them a wider perspective on their objections. Helping them see through their objections will allow them to make an informed decision. Having a glimpse of what they can achieve with you will help them have an agency of their own. Experiencing in their own body what they feel with you is what will help them decide, not your shutting down, feeling rejected, or abandoning your client midway because you have to exit your body, right? So when I was taking one-on-one sessions, I no longer take one-on-one sessions. When I was taking them, I would take a discovery call and coach my ass off. I would give them everything in that one discovery session or a consultation session and ensure that they experience the most powerful coaching of their lifetime. Most people are astonished and find it magical how I could shift their world in mere 90 minutes. When I tell them that I take clients only for 6 months, they would hesitate a bit. For example, I was charging 28,000 US dollars for 6 months of coaching one-on-one. And even when I would talk about my price, I wouldn't leave them exiting my body midway. I wouldn't do that. Of course, there would be objections. Of course, people will ask, but why is it so expensive, Gaurav? And I would remind them how they can experience every single week what they just experienced with me in one single session. If it was magical, imagine magic for the next 6 months, every single week. I would constantly remind them and show them the value that I'm bringing to them, show them the results that could be possible with me. I would treat their objections as a part of any other question that they would ask me about my coaching, about my healing. And I would answer it without going into freeze and shutting down and numbing out. And I would help them see what they actually came for. Their desire is to transform, their desire is to heal, their desire is to change. Now, are they willing to pay $28,000 for that desire of theirs? And it's very similar to any other desire that they may have, like buying a house, taking a holiday, going on a yacht, buying a car. All of these are desires, and they're willing to pay money to have those desires fulfilled. And I treat the same here as well. I see their desire for coaching and healing, and I continue to show them that this is what you're going to get. And for that, you pay this much amount of money, right? And I would sit for a while I hold the space to imagine, how would that change their life? They paying me 28,000 US dollars. How would that change their life? What would they get in contrast to a big house, a car, or a grand holiday? And I would ask them, how do you think your life is going to change? And I do this because I know that my client will have the truest agency from a place of trust and from a vision of the future that they can have of themselves. And it's my duty to show them that future. It's not my duty to be angry with them. It's not my duty to go into fawning or being scared and shutting down, but staying true to what I charge and then continuing to show them the results and give them the transformations right then and there. This is true power. This is how you can actually empower your client. This is true agency. And you can all learn it inside ATEPS. So if you haven't joined ATEPS, please do consider joining right now, today itself, by going to my Instagram, where once again, you'll find a lot of resources there. It's at Dr. Gaurav Dekka. And if you go to the link in my bio, you will find the link to join ATEPS. As you know, it's a lifetime coaching program, and we all make a lot of money inside it, right? So that's where I leave you today. And I'm going to see you next week in the next episode. So thank you so much. I'll see you soon. Bye-bye. If you enjoyed listening to this podcast and are willing to change your business and money reality, head to my free coaching community on Facebook called You Are Money. Link is in the show notes. And do not forget to leave a review on Spotify.com or Apple Podcast. Thank you so much.